We gotta make a video. It was gonna be fun. Why do you look so serious? He's ready. So I'm gonna talk to you guys about hiking with your dog on AT because a lot of people make it sound like it's impossible or it's really hard and it's not fun, but all of those are false and I love it. So I'm gonna go through everything and kind of explain to you how I dealt with it, what it's like, and what you gotta do. So starting with just like overall gear for a dog. Looking at the pack, I think it's super important to get a really well-fitted pack that has good padding, because I think that's the biggest issue I've had so far is the rubbing on his skin. He does have thin fur, so I think thicker fur dogs wouldn't have this problem, but he's gotten rubs under his chest and under his armpits from the nylon straps of the pack that he uses. His grandma made some wool covers for the straps, so he no longer rubs and stuff. So make sure you just kind of keep an eye on your dog's skin and how he's reacting to certain things, and you should be fine. Make sure you follow the 10% rule. The 10% rule is making sure that the dog is not carrying more than 10% of his weight. So Z's 50 pounds, so I don't let him carry more than 5 pounds. As far as boots and, feet care go, I don't use boots. I'm not against them, but I do feel like the pads and claws of a dog work a lot better for grip than boots do. So I didn't really want to change much on his natural abilities. So I stick to using a pad wax. So the pad wax helps with moisturization and protection of the pad. So every night I just do a quick little application of the pad wax. He did start getting a little bit of irritation on the inside of his feet, which I think is more of the rocks that we've been dealing with the past couple of days. So for that, I just applied Neosporin and actually allowed him to take a day off and rest because the inside of his feet were starting to really bother him. So as long as you regulate that and keep an eye on him and on them, you should be perfectly fine. I've had 0 issues up until now. For Ziggy, I do have a raincoat as well as a fleece. The raincoat keeps him dry and keeps him warm. Allows you to have a dry dog in the tent. Now for the fleece, I ended up buying that about a week or 2 into the trail. I noticed that every night he would get pretty cold. He does sleep in the sleeping bag with me, but it just wasn't enough to keep him warm. So I bought him his own fleece, which he sleeps in pretty much every night. And it also does help wick away moisture, so if he does get a little wet, I can stick that on and he dries pretty quickly. One piece of gear that I do recommend for people who have a dog and sleep in a tent, I would definitely recommend getting some sort of like sock or bootie that you can put on in the tent. My reason being is that I've had instances where he's, just like pushed his hand out or paw and stretched and has actually nicked the tent a little bit. So if you don't really care about that, then don't worry about it, but I do recommend if you don't want to have to do any repairs on your tent. So let's get to the trail. As far as water and food, I've had absolutely 0 problems with that. So for water, he actually can drink straight from the streams. He has a pretty hearty stomach, so I've had 0 problem with that. I do carry an extra liter with me at all times for the longer stretches that don't necessarily have a lot of water along the way. Because you definitely need to make sure your dog's drinking enough water and hydrating. So that was never a problem for me, especially I've gotten lucky it's rained a lot, so I guess in the drier months, make sure you regulate that more. But for the most part, he is able to drink right from the sources. For food, which was the biggest asked question, if your dog does have a sensitive stomach or does have allergies or something, I would definitely just stick to food drops. A lot of the times you can get the brand of food you buy in grocery stores in towns, but if you're nervous about that, just stick to mail drops because it'll be easier in the long run and then less stressful, which is the goal here. In towns, I've had zero problems finding food for sure though, because you can go to gas stations, they'll have it. You can go to grocery stores, any Walmart. So there's always something provided for you that will have dog food. For his dog food, not only does he get kibble, but he also gets olive oil on his food. Are you hungry? So I have his typical kibble that I get from the store, and then convert into little baggies, easier to carry. And then I add some olive oil to his food to add some calories. So I do just about, can you wait? I do about a cup of food, which is honestly all he really needs, especially because he gets a lot of extras, and just like a tablespoon of olive oil. And that's pretty much it for a meal. Olive oil provides a good amount more calories for him to burn, and it makes his coat look beautiful. But it's mostly just for giving him the extra little oomph he needs in his diet. Another perk is that he cleans up a lot of hiker food. So if it has chicken, pasta, any of that, rice, he can eat it. They're allowed to eat that. Again, if your dog has a sensitive stomach, I'd stay away from that stuff. But he's lucky enough to be able to eat extra goods on the trail. Zig gets trail magic too. Sit.
5-8. Apple.
Speak. Speak. Oh, good job.
Somebody wrote.
Especially beef jerky. A lot of people like to feed him beef jerky, so he's been pretty spoiled, fat and happy. So yeah, no problems with food on the trail. I wouldn't stress about that unless your dog does have an allergy, but that's easily fixed. For the trail itself, hitchhiking was something that everybody warned me would be really hard. I've literally had zero problems. I've gotten hitches pretty quickly. I think it helps that I'm a female, but also it just shows that he doesn't affect anything. I've actually had people pick me up who were like, I don't even ever let dogs in my car, and they were more than happy to like take them in. So again, no problems.
Spending the night, then you're gonna come back.
Going into towns, it's actually quite easy. For grocery stores, what I would do was I would tie them outside to like a bench, make sure it's shaded. I would make sure there was water if it was a little bit warmer, or just in general. And sometimes I would even lay out his mat. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, there's other options. If maybe you hitched in with somebody, maybe you can take turns, like shifts, going to the grocery store, but it's definitely up to you. It's pretty easy as long as your dog is well behaved. For a restaurant, same situation. Tie them up outside, or if there's a patio option, definitely pick that. For hostels and other things like that, I have honestly had zero problems with staying in some hostels. I actually stayed in one that didn't even allow dogs, but it was such a slow day and the weather was awful. The guy was perfectly fine with it.
For a couple days. I said, oh yeah, no way. That's why I'm calling you down to work.
So people are willing to work with you for sure. And call ahead, always call ahead. Going back to the trail, shelters was one of the many things that people said was the hardest for dogs. I am going to tell you that is not true. I've had zero issues with people not liking dogs. Also, people typically love dogs on the shelters because they ward away bears, any sort of little critters that would like to chew through your stuff, mice. We had zero problems with those, so definitely a perk. The one problem I did see in shelters was that I had a few people worried about their blow-up mattresses being popped. If you keep your dog, tied up, or if they're obedient, you can work your way around that. And for sure, just keep an eye on whatever blow-up mattresses are in the shelter. Anytime I'd, make it to a shelter, if there was people already there, I would always make sure to ask if it's okay if a dog slept in the shelter. It's just respectful. Most people don't care, even if they love dogs. Make sure to ask because it's just the nice thing to do. Worst comes to worst, you have to camp out in the campsites. That's not a problem. Walking the trail, I there's a big controversy. I wouldn't say controversy. I feel like maybe this is just controversy in my brain. There's a lot of, issues with leashing your dog. I have been lucky enough to have a dog who is very, very well behaved on trail. He does walk better without a leash. He always has one on him, but it's tucked in his pack. But it does allow me to have quick control of him if need be. And he walks behind me, so I'm always ready for what's up front and can grab him if need be. But I have had situations where dogs weren't on leash and he actually got attacked by a dog. It wasn't bad. The dog, I feel like the dog was kind of just letting him know that this was her area rather than actually trying to draw blood. But it still was a situation that could have been taken care of just by having your dog on a leash and keeping tabs on your dog. That's the biggest thing, is to know where they are, what they're focused on. If they're off leash, you have to micromanage everything they're doing. If he goes off and sniffs too far, I make sure to call him over, because I do not let him more than 10 feet away from me, and that's pushing it, because not only are there snakes that they could find themselves tangling with, or other dogs in the area, people who don't necessarily like dogs or are allergic. There's situations that you just need to take into consideration when having your dog off leash. It is kind of against the law to have your dog off leash, so definitely keep that in mind. Again, it's just respectful to if you're walking by another dog or walking by a person, to have hold of your dog, and then if you do want them to meet or they want to meet you, just ask permission. Just say, hey, can my dog sniff your dog? It's just courtesy and it's respect. Again, there's been instances where dogs didn't like other dogs, dogs didn't like humans, and having a dog off leash, having them approach them without consent has caused issues. So definitely keep tabs on that. The reason I keep him behind me when hiking is they exert a lot less energy. So when he's up front and he's pack leader, he wants to work 10 times harder. So he'll walk faster and just use way too much energy. So in my opinion, it's best to have him walk behind me, so then he's keeping a consistent pace, and I can kind of keep an eye on how much he's done that day. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for leashing. It's one of my biggest pet peeves when people have a dog off leash that's kind of just running around amongst everybody. It's fine to an extent, but those are the dogs that typically get hurt because they end up finding things that they shouldn't have. Bathroom on the trail for dogs. If your dog goes to the bathroom on the trail, on the walking path, remove it. Use a stick. There's many ways you can remove this. Dig a hole, throw it in the woods. Just don't leave it on the path, because I think that's just insanely rude. If they go in the woods, it's not a big deal. Nobody walks in there, and animals go in there anyway, so I don't see that as a big deal, in my opinion. Now, if you do, then dig another hole, shove it in there and cover it up, or pack it out. Whatever you feel best doing. So that's kind of your own personal preference and opinion. So go with what you feel is comfortable, but do not leave it on trail or in any walking areas around the shelter. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for dogs. A lot of people make it sound so incredibly hard, and it's really not, guys. I vote make the AT more dog friendly. I think it's great. People love having dogs around, especially if they're well behaved. If you have a yappy dog, if you have a temperamental dog, just assess it and decide accordingly where you should stay. If your dog doesn't like other people, maybe hike forward to the next tent site. Don't ruin somebody's stay because your dog is aggressive or whatever. So you definitely need to take in consideration all the hikers. One last thing, there is definitely a certain type of dog that should hike. Make sure your dog's in his prime. Don't bring a old dog out here. If you are, do sections, and then do shorter days. Don't try to push your dog for these longer days if they're older. Dogs who are older also typically have thicker fur, so this goes for those too. They can't handle the heat, so hike early in the morning or hike late at night and take it easy during the day. He doesn't handle heat well, so if it's too hot in the middle of the day, we typically have to take a really long lunch, hang out until it cools down again. You're literally hiking their hike, so work with them on that. Again, if you have any questions, just message me, and happy hiking, everyone.